And today on Book Chat, we're talking about vampires. So tell us a little bit more, Jackie.
Well, I was going to go and just talk about some of the new vampire writers that have come about, and that people are asking for and becoming really popular. One of them is Laurel Hamilton. She also started writing in the early 90s. She had the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series, which a lot of her fans would know about. But now she's sort of written a series of books. She's up to like number 17 in a series.
Wow. So when would the first one have been published?
1993.
And she's written 17 books. Wow.
The first one was called Guilty Pleasures, and they're up to number 17.
I think I've heard that. I heard of that one, yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, there's been a bit of criticism about her writing because she's getting quite excessive sex and violence. So she had a bit of controversy associated with that, but she's definitely got a big group of fans, and she doesn't write for young adults, she writes for adults.
Okay.
So, it's not like they're trying to market her books at the Stephanie Meyer audience in any way, and we certainly don't market them that way in the shop either.
Yes.
We keep our fantasy adult section very distinct from the young adult area.
Yes, because you don't want, if they're quite explicit, you don't want younger people getting to them. Yeah,
that's right. So, we have to be quite, it's a bit difficult with books because there's no rating in any way.
That's a good point.
Yes.
That's a good point. And it's particularly when you're talking about something like the vampire phenomenon that is so popular, and you could have people coming, including parents for their, say, young teenage children, wanting a vampire book. And if you're not familiar with it, you could quite unknowingly. That's interesting that they have never introduced that into books, especially now, because, even on CDs they have warnings and things like that.
I've actually asked that question from quite a few industry people, and that I've come across. And it's to do with the fact that you couldn't possibly read every single book out there.
What about when the actual, when the publishers publish it? Could there be a standard as to what's acceptable?
That's the issue. I think with things like ratings, it's done usually by an independent body.
Yes, it is. They watch the film. That's right.
Yeah. So I think allowing the publishers to do it is probably like. In some ways they do it. In the back of most books it'll actually say like fiction, adult fiction or young adults, so they do it to that extent from a publisher.
Do they have any warnings, like as you were saying one of the books has a lot of sex and such in it? Would it have a warning like that?
They don't. So we really rely on the people who come to us and when they're talking to us about the books when they're coming out. We rely a lot on our own research.
Yes.
On our own staff reading books, and even people like coming into the store and
talking
us
about
feedback.
The book. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and especially when you've got something like vampires, which everyone is thinking of the Stephanie Meyer books at the moment, and they think, "Oh, I'll read another book," maybe not realising, as you were saying, that some of the books are actually for adults, and could obviously have quite different content.
So that's why we keep them quite separate. But I mean, I have some reservations because with the Stephanie Meyer even though it's targeting young adults, we were starting to get girls as young as 11 reading the books.
Oh, okay.
Which is fine until you get to about book 4.
Yes.
And then book 4 is, there's quite a bit of violence and things like that I wouldn't want an 11-year-old.
Do you actually warn a parent if they're buying one?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so that's very good, because a lot of booksellers wouldn't do that.
Yeah, well, we think it's our responsibility, really.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, especially if you're aware of it. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's up to the parent whether they let the child read it, but at least you've given them that information.
Yeah, and the thing is, we also do, I mean, this is particularly with the younger readers. I mean, it's not so much with the adults. They can make their own decisions as they're reading.
Exactly right.
But we will, if we haven't read it or we don't know, we will say that. We will say, look, I don't know about this author, or we haven't read it, so you need to be a bit careful about passing it on.
That's very responsible. And as you say, with adults, that's altogether different. But especially when you've got your younger ones, and as I said, like something like the vampire books, if they're written quite differently, it could be a bit of a trap for a young
people
person.
like Laurel Hamilton and Charlene Harris. Well, Charlene Harris is the author of the True Blood series. True Blood's also a TV series, so she's got a lot of fans because it's gone to TV, and they've capitalised on that side
Is
of
that
it.
an actual series, is it?
Yeah, on
Okay.
TV. A lot of people love it, and a lot of people come to buy the books because of the series on TV.
Yeah.
And that again, that is very adult content. It's like, you know, going to sort of, it's beyond romance, I guess. But it's
Intimate relationships.
Yes, that's right. I'm trying to find the right words.
Yes. Not for young children to read, or younger adults
Yeah,
to read.
so, I mean, Charlene Harris is huge. And, again, just an adult author, but she writes about vampires.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's crossing age groups.
Yeah.
That subject is crossing a lot of different age groups. Yeah.
And then there's the younger generation. There's a younger generation of writers. So there's people like L.J. Smith, which a lot think compared to Stephanie Merritt, but actually say is a better writer. And that she wrote Vampire Diaries, which has also been made into a series.
Yes.
And the Vampire Diaries were written in 1991, and it's about like, you know, high school.
Bit like Buffy.
Yeah, probably.
Yep,
probably along those lines, with a bit of romance and action thrown in.
Yes.
Then there's the PC Cast, another a mother-daughter collaboration.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. And a lot of Twilight fans move on to PC Cast to read PC Cast.
Is that for a slightly older audience, or still the same audience?
No, still young
same?
adults.
Yeah.
And they're up to book 6 in their series of books.
Wow, there is quite a series.
Yeah,
isn't
there's
there?
a whole thing going on about, like, not just writing one book as well.
And the same characters go in a series, like Harry Potter sort of situation.
Yes. Yeah. And you kind of grow with the characters. Yeah. There's also Rochelle Mead, who's like amazingly popular, and she writes the Vampire Academy books.
I had no idea there was so many vampire
it
books
just doesn't
out
end.
there.
And every 5 minutes at the moment, we get people asking when her next
book will be
book
out.
is out, which is number 5 in her series, and that's coming out in May.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
And do you think at the moment, from your industry experience and also in the bookshop, do you think any time soon that the phenomenon of the vampire is going to? Yeah.
Oh, look, it's not going to go, but I can see it morphing.
Yes.
It's moving. Like, the big thing that is happening now is fallen angels.
Okay.
It's about, you know, angels that find themselves on Earth for whatever reason, and there's quite a few authors coming out in that realm.
Right.
There's werewolves. Werewolves are pretty big. We went through a zombie phase.
They're also attractive, aren't they?
What else is happening? Yeah, there's a lot of that. So it's not. It started with the vampires, and now it's kind of broadening into a few other
areas.
Yeah,
but the same sort of theme.
Very fantasy, but very fantasy, and this is why I wanted to research this topic. Why are we so obviously intent as a population to escape?
Yes.
At the moment, there must be a reason. And
also, too, the particular theme of escape. I mean, it isn't some fantasy island, you know, some beautiful tropical island. It's, you know, vampires and wolves and fallen angels, which are all a little bit dark.
Yeah. Well, I've come up with some, out of my reading, I've come up with some collective ideas about why people think this is happening.
Oh, wow.
We've got the concept that vampires live forever.
Ah, yes.
And as a nation, as a market, there's a $291 billion spent on anti-aging products.
Oh. That is definitely, in the last, I'd say, 5 years, particularly in Australia, that has just become huge.
Yes.
There are so many ways to...
I think the concept of the fact we like reading about vampires because they live forever is very much in line with what we're trying to achieve.
And do vampires age?
No.
Well, there you go. They live forever and they don't
They always
age.
look good.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you could live forever.
They always happen to get bitten at about 30, 35 or so in their prime.
Maybe they want, like, they don't want vintage blood. They want mint blood. When they
the other thing is about that vampires are driven by lust. So there's that whole aspect, you know, that we, you know, people, sex sells and all that sort of stuff. Anne Rice actually has been quoted to say that, you know, it goes back to that whole concept of worshipping gods. You know, and it takes
as in the more pagan version.
It takes us back to primitive times when we worship dark gods as well as light gods, and it's a powerful metaphor for the outcast and the monster within all of us.
Oh, that's
so that
very
was her
deep.
quote.
Oh, dear. So there's a vampire lurking in all of us.